Okay, so this is a really important story that I'm going to be doing this kind of breakdown, you could say. Now, basically, this is kind of crazy. This is all kind of a little bit of a build-up now, but there are U.S. officials who are reporting that Israel is essentially trying to go to war with Iran, and they're trying to get the U.S. to help them, which is absolutely fucking crazy. Now, this all started with, I believe it was 2 days ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, of course. He did this presentation of his that he gave, saying that Iran lied about the nuclear deal and that they cheated out of their side of the nuclear deal, the Iran nuclear deal that was put into place by Barack Obama, which is great because we gave the Iranians their money back that we froze from sanctions, and in return, the UN literally gets to go in and inspect Iran. This is not, an honor-based system. This is, the IAEA is going to go in, they're going to check, and they're going to look to see, or do you guys have nuclear facilities running? That's what they're going to do. So, basically, as you guys can see here, it says Netanyahu Iran nuclear deal is based on lies. Here's the proof. So there was this, you probably saw the picture of Netanyahu in front of the screen that says Iran lied, and it's a very, bullshitty thing to say, and we're going to get into a little thorough debunking of that, or a very straightforward debunking of that, if you will. But Netanyahu had some really bad past with the Iraq War as well. And obviously Netanyahu, somebody's responsible to the killing of thousands of innocent civilians, women and children, etc., as you guys know. But now what we're going to be looking at here is the fact that it says, report, U.S. officials say Israel preparing for war with Iran in Syria. Says the U.S. officials also blamed Israel for the airstrike on military bases in the Syrian cities of Hamas and Aleppo on Sunday that killed over 20 military personnel, including Iranians. So this article that I have here says Israel seems to be preparing for war with Iran, U.S. officials say. An Israeli airstrike that killed and wounded dozens of Iranians at a Syrian base is the latest sign of escalating conflict. It says an Israeli airstrike on the western Syrian city of Hama on Sunday killed 24 Iranian soldiers and targeted arms recently delivered from Iran, said 3 U.S. officials, and is the latest sign that Israel and Iran are moving closer to open warfare. Quote, on the list of potentials for most likely live hostility around the world, the battle between Israel and Iran and Syria is at the top of the list right now, said one senior U.S. official. So there have been a lot of kind of mini conflicts that kind of have spurred out, and especially with this regional battle now over Syria, and this has kind of been happening sort of in the areas of the Middle East, but I guess now it's really cooking in Syria. But basically they'll get into these little kind of spats or little conflicts that happen, but eventually they'll pull away because obviously having war with the country like Iran is going to be devastating, absolutely fucking devastating for both sides. And so what you're looking at here is Netanyahu is looking to go to war with Iran at this point because of their battles in Syria that they're now having, their little regional battles that are going on. Now we're going to be looking at here, we're going to be looking at this here. So this was something that Benjamin Netanyahu stated in the run-up to Iraq. This is what he said. He said, there's no question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever, and there's no question that once he acquires it, history shifts immediately. So as you can see there, this is very similar. The presentation that he gave and this kind of run-up that he's giving is superbly similar. It's massively similar to the run-up to Iraq. And, there have been a lot of people who were 100% wrong about Iraq. 100% wrong about Iraq. I think the guy's name is Ari Fleischer or something like that. And Mehdi Hassan posted a quote saying that, our intelligence is 100% correct. He has weapons of mass destruction. We need to go in now as soon as possible. And he was completely wrong. And now he's on Netanyahu's side saying, oh yeah, they lied. Again, this is a 100% not an honor-based system. This is a literal, the IAEA goes in. They go into Iran and they inspect. And we gave them their money back. So Obviously, Israel is not trustworthy because they have outside influences from the United States, which are contradictory to ours. But as we're also going to be looking at here, here's something interesting. Now, what we're going to be seeing here is an IAEA report that just came out. I believe it was today or yesterday. I can't recall exactly. But this is an article from The Hill. It says, UN nuclear agency, no credible indications of Iran nuclear activity after 2009. It says the United Nations' nuclear energy agency on Tuesday rejected claims from Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu that Iran's government is conducting weapons research in secret. Nuclear weapons research in secret. It says in an assessment released Tuesday, the International Atomic Energy Agency wrote that there's, quote, no credible indications to support claims that Iran was continuing its, quote, coordinated nuclear weapons program after 2009. Netanyahu made the claims on Monday in a speech in Tel Aviv as part of his effort to urge President Trump to scrap the Iran nuclear deal signed in 2015 by the Obama administration, which was meant to ensure Iran does not complete development of a nuclear weapon. So, you guys know that Trump is basically, there's almost like a sort of interesting pattern that we see where Trump is basically trying to destroy everything that Obama put into place, and the Iran nuclear deal is absolutely no exemption from that rule at all whatsoever. And as you guys can see here, there was an IAEA report that just came out Tuesday, and they came out saying, no, there's no credible indications of Iran's nuclear weapon program after 2009. So, basically, Netanyahu makes this, big announcement in this little announcement saying that they cheated the deal. But the funniest part about this is the report that I just showed you about how Israel wants to go to war with Iran, that by itself should automatically pretty much debunk his claim. Do you know why? It's because clearly what they're trying to do is essentially have a conflict of interest there because they're not looking for peace. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to discredit Iran, wrongly so, incorrectly so, falsely so, not actually being truthful, but being liars about Iran. They're trying to make shit up. They're trying to fake it. This is the exact same thing that happened in the run-up to the Iraq War. There was literally fabricated evidence. It was fabricated. This is the same exact shit that Netanyahu's trying to pull. And believe me, he knows about this process because that quote that I just showed you, that was just a little snippet of it was just one turd from a big turd storm of shit that turned out to be completely false and completely wrong. And so, the idea that we're taking the word of Benjamin Netanyahu, because even, take out the Iraq War, right? Forget that. So he's someone who shouldn't be trusted anyways. He's argued that, we should continue illegal settlements because, hey, that's not really the reason why they don't have peace. So even though it's illegal by definition, by international law, let's continue them anyways because it's not part of the peace it's not something that's obstructing peace, so let's break international law anyways. He's someone who's resulted in, there was a report that in 2014 the Gaza attacks were something like 90% civilians killed. That was a UN report. So we're talking thousands of women and children being killed by this guy, and this is someone who is now trying to sabotage, I repeat, sabotage any kind of peaceful or diplomatic process for, stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We cannot trust Israel for the reasons that I just stated, and I'm going to have more reasons in a second as to why we can't trust both Netanyahu and Israel. So, we can't trust him because of his horrible track record on the Iraq War, as well as obviously him being a very shady dude. But also, don't underscore the fact that this is a conflict of interest, because his statements on the Iran nuclear deal have been compromised due to his interest of wanting to go to war with Iran. Because think about it like this, okay, and I'm going to try to explain it one more time. If you're about to go to war with the country, and you're now trying to make a statement about that country's deal that has to do with, what the U.S. made, your interests have now been compromised. Because what you are now trying to do is, you're trying to go to war, and you want to discredit Iran, and you want to get the United States on your side. So, no trust to Netanyahu whatsoever. Zero, zilch, no trust in Netanyahu whatsoever at all. But, we're going to be getting into something even deeper here. This is something even deeper, okay? This is your boy, Bibi, as they call him, apparently. He is someone who is massively corrupt. Now, you may not know this. I don't know if the mainstream media really covered this all that much, but he has not been questioned once, twice, but 3 times. The police actually recommended that he be indicted on charges of corruption. Now, basically what he would do is, it's really crazy. He would get together with these media conglomerates, these media giants in Israel, and he would basically, what he would do is, he'd give them favors in terms of saving them millions of dollars, being the prime minister, and then in exchange, they would give him good coverage. And like I said, the police in Israel had recommended that he be indicted on charges of corruption due to his literal corruption. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about this. It says, this article from New York Times says, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel was questioned by the police on Friday as a possible suspect in a 3rd bribery case. Again, not 1, not 2, but 3 bribery cases. It says the weightiest so far in a string of corruption investigations that are jeopardizing his political future. Wow, isn't that fucking convenient? As he's now being questioned in a 3rd case after the police have recommended that he be indicted on charges of bribery and corruption, he's now going to try to go to war with Iran. Isn't that convenient? Because what is the best thing to do when you're either under massive scrutiny, you're under massive pressure, you're going to go to war because your country's going to support you when you first start going to war. That's what we saw when we went to Iraq. I mean, the approval rating for going into Iraq was crazy. The approval rating for George W. Bush was crazy. So, this is exactly what he's trying to do. But not only that, but changing leadership in wartime is something that people don't really like to do. And that's another thing that he's trying to do. If he starts a war or he starts any kind of escalation, now it's going to become a more hesitant process to be able to remove him. And he's trying to elongate or postpone or make his, prime ministership longer. And so this is another kind of cop-out that he's doing. It says, officers questioned Mr. Netanyahu about a case involving Shaul Elovitch, an Israeli telecommunications tycoon accused of using his popular Hebrew news site to provide positive coverage of Mr. Netanyahu and his wife in return for regulatory and financial benefits worth tens of millions of dollars. A large black screen was drawn on Friday morning across leafy Balfour Street in Jerusalem, concealing the Prime Minister's official residence and the comings and goings of investigators. Outside, a small but noisy group of demonstrators beat drums and held placards with slogans against corruption. Mr. Netanyahu has now been questioned by the police 8 times in the past 14 months. 8 times in the past 14 months. Is fighting for his political life as the allegations against him mount. Again, isn't that convenient that he now all of a sudden wants to start a war? Isn't it convenient that he's now painting Iran as this country who lied, even though the IAEA came out and debunked his shit right on the spot? It says last month the police recommended that Mr. Netanyahu be charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in 2 other graft cases involving allegations of illicit gifts for favors and another attempt to obtain more favorable coverage. So again, this is literally the textbook definition of bribery, because what you're doing is you're giving him favorable coverage on your news network in exchange for regulatory benefits that will save you millions upon millions of dollars. So he is the literal. There's so many fronts as to why we can't trust Netanyahu, and this is all outside of the bounds of fuck war. War is stupid. Why would you go to war between Israel and Iran? That is so stupid, especially because the U.S. is going to have certain ties to Israel that they're going to want to jump in. Could you imagine how catastrophic that would be? A war between Iran and, maybe Russia jumps in or whoever jumps in. This could be fucking, this would be fucking a disaster. It would be an absolute disaster for them to go to war. And it is an unacceptable option for them to go to war. But the fact that we're at all trusting Benjamin Netanyahu in this to expose, Iran is so absurd for the many reasons that I just stated. First of all, being that his interests and his opinions have clearly been compromised because he's attempting to go to war with Iran. Therefore, his opinions on whether or not Iran is being truthful has to be under massive scrutiny and under question. Because if you're going to go to war with the country, what's your first thing you want to do? You want to discredit them. It's very obvious. And obviously, he's been responsible for the killings of, thousands of innocent civilians. As the UN report stated, it was something like 90% of the killings in the 2014 bombings were civilians. That's a UN report. And on top of all that, he's one of the most corrupt, like textbook corrupt assholes on the planet. And also, he's almost like the Israeli Trump, basically. He was railing against the media, he was going after the news, and he was saying this is fake news, and all the police are wrong, and all this stuff. The police recommended, again, let me state you the quote again. It said, last month, the police recommended that Mr. Netanyahu be charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in 2 other graft cases involving allegations of illicit gifts for favors and another attempt to obtain more favorable coverage. Abso-fucking-lutely unacceptable. Absolutely fucking unacceptable. So again, really quickly, he gave this presentation to try to expose Iran in some way, which is complete bullshit. He's totally wrong because he's saying the same shit that's said in Iraq, and therefore we should not trust him at all. We should not be trusting him at all. And this is something that needs to be talked about. It is unacceptable. War is not an option here. Diplomacy is the only option. We should not accept war as an option whatsoever. It will lead to massive, literally hundreds of thousands of, if not millions, of civilian casualties. It will lead to massive death of nations, and it will lead to mass destruction. And again, when it comes to nuclear ties like the United States, it's going to get extremely dangerous. So Netanyahu, fuck your supposed expose. You're a fraud. You're a killer of civilians who are women and children. You killed 90% civilians in your Gaza bombings in 2014. The police recommended that you be fucking convicted and charged on charges of bribery and fraud. You're a textbook corrupt piece of shit, and you're also someone who's dead wrong about Iraq. Why the fuck should we ever take your opinion about anything foreign policy-wise ever again? You're a fraud. You are an absolute fraud. Your interests are completely fraudulent. Okay, they're completely fraudulent because you're trying to go to war with the country, and then at the simultaneous you're trying to discredit them. How the fuck can we take your word for it? And again, like I said, you are a piece of shit who is a literally textbook example of corruption. Textbook example of corruption. War with Iran should not be an option. I will not accept it as an option, and you should not accept it as an option, and the United States better not get involved, and they should do everything they can to prevent this war from escalating. And again, this is all because Netanyahu is trying to get attention off of the fact that he is being, there's a process going on of him, the Attorney General and other people trying to get him charged for all these fucking bribery crimes that he's committed, and this corruption that he has done. And so he's trying to not only get attention off that, but he's trying to make it more of a hesitant process, because if you know that he was, committing bribery, or you're getting kind of close and you want to remove him, but you're in time of war, and Israel, when they go war, they go serious. Okay, so that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing right now. Netanyahu, I don't trust you. The IAEA came out today and debunked your sorry ass because you're a complete liar and a fraud. You were 100% wrong about Iraq. You're wrong about everything now, and you're a complete fraud and a liar.